All right, I may have written a few things down before I started the camera, so let's just talk through them real quickly. Starting with the molecule of glucose, there are 3 possible metabolic pathways that can be utilized to break down glucose. Whenever I say glucose, in your mind, you are visualizing that molecule with 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygen atoms. And it's how we are going to harvest this nutrient to produce this end product of ATP at the end. All right. And it depends on the organism what set of enzymes they have. As humans, I'm hoping you can see humans are restrained to this aerobic respiration pathway for the majority of our cells. There is a set of your cells that is able to ferment carbohydrate into acids. It's a very small subset, and I think you will hopefully find that used when you are stressing your muscles. So one thing we will see is an end product of these anaerobic fermentation reactions will be acids, alcohols, and gases. One acid that is being produced by your muscle cells only. No other cell in your body has enzymes capable of utilizing fermentation. Only your muscle cells will have those enzymes to catalyze the conversion of pyruvic acid into lactic acid. Pyruvic acid, the end product of lactic acid, or the end product of glycolysis. All right, but back to comparing and contrasting, because you know that's one of my favorite questions. It is important to look for patterns of similarity and patterns of differences. I did mention they all do share glycolysis as a process. However, respiration is confined to Krebs cycle in the electron transport chain. You will not find that Krebs cycle in the electron transport chain in fermentation. Fermentation just utilizes a specialized fermentation reaction. All right, the last thing I want you to remember is going to be the final electron acceptor. Final electron acceptor, final electron acceptor. I mentioned that electrons cannot run around the cell freely because they will cause too much damage. In aerobic respiration, oxygen is the final electron acceptor. Oxygen. And remember that oxygen is going to actually accept the final electrons and be reduced to water. So accepts final electrons to become water, which we call metabolic water. Since this is anaerobic respiration, you're not going to have oxygen as a final electron acceptor. Instead, you will have an oxygen-containing ion. So oxygen-containing ion, but not O2. This is going to be O2 in its elemental form. So some of those would be a sulfate ion, a nitrate ion, or a carbonate ion. CO3 2-. Don't worry about the charges. I'm not even sure if those charges are correct. Sulfate, nitrate, and carbonate ions are those possible final electron acceptors where those electrons will end up. When we get to anaerobic fermentation, we will see the electrons are usually going to end up on these acids and alcohols. So in the case of lactic acid, that's actually where the final electrons are ending up, would be on that lactic acid. Lactic acid is pyruvic acid plus 2 hydrogens. So the two hydrogens were actually accepted by pyruvic acid, and now those two hydrogens plus pyruvic acid equals lactic acid. All right, so compare and contrast. What do they have for energy production? What are their final electron acceptors? And that you can use as a clue to determine what type of metabolism is taking place. I'm thinking about an organism that utilizes an organic acid like pyruvic acid as its final electron acceptor. Are we talking about aerobic or not? As oxygen is the final electron acceptor in aerobic respiration, an organic acid that contains carbon and hydrogen, like lactic acid or pyruvic acid, is going to be the final electron acceptor for fermentation. Is fermentation the same thing as anaerobic respiration? So do not get those two confused. Those are very different processes. While they do share some similarities, they actually have more differences.